Hello out there, YouTubers, and welcome to PE Slick Podcast. I'm your host, Matt here. Each week I'm going to bring you something different in terms of leadership, ministering, entertainment, book authoring, and much more. But before we begin each time, I'm going to be airing a classic throwback commercial from back in the 80s or 90s or 2000s from my personal liking. Stay tuned.
That day, Emily and I jaunted toward Mr. Thomas's bake shop. But to our dismay, our friend went off with his muffins to America.
Thomas's English Muffins, England's breakfast tradition in America's hands.
Previously on PE Slick Podcast, I had the pleasure of interviewing Rick Goldschmidt. Rick was talking about his part in working with Rankin and Bass Productions, the company that originated Frosty, Rudolph, and Santa is Coming to Town. We talked on Monday, and now here's part 2 of our interview. Enjoy.
Surprisingly enough, in case you was curious or anybody listening to it that's curious, I know these celebrities and a lot of people because, I'm almost 30 years old, and when I was growing up in the 90s, I was born in 91, so that was pre-80s going into the 90s. And as I mentioned earlier, cable wasn't as advanced like it is now. So when you had cable, you had little channels, and a lot of these movies and shows came on, and then later TV Land came on. So that's how I know Be With the Beaver. I knew Murder, She Wrote with Angela Lansbury. Of course, I knew Barbara Eaton from I.G. McGeamy, and later I got hooked on Dallas with Larry Hagman and Patrick Duffy, who I met 2 years ago. I met Patrick Duffy. Barbara Eaton was in the last season, so I haven't met her yet, but, I got hooked on a lot of these old shows, and I guess you can say I'm an old heart that's young because I'm still watching this stuff when it comes on when I have the time. And it's like we said, it is a touch and blessing when you're meeting these people and doing what you're doing is an honorable blessing. And growing up, I was a fan of Rudolph and Santa, and I've always said that one song that you brought up, put one foot in front of the other. I always considered that, it might be in a kid's show, but it's a true saying. That could be a true saying for somebody that's struggling. If you put one foot in front of the other, you'll make your way out the door, and anything is possible.
Well, even another song that I posted over the weekend that everybody loves is from 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Even a Miracle Needs a Hand is a famous Rankin Bass song that really motivates a lot of people. In fact, I got an email 10 or 15 years ago from a parent that had a kid with some type of struggling disease, and they asked me could I get the lyrics for that from Maury Laws, which I did. And it's like it means a lot to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and that's always great to know that Rankin Bass means so much to even just Rudolph. If they had only done Rudolph alone, it's touched so many people for different reasons.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of dentists out there that were inspired by Hermie, and Rudolph is such an underdog character. A lot of people identify with that. He has the red nose, and he doesn't quite fit in, and the Island of Misfit Toys, they don't fit in, and all these characters don't fit in, but they find some value in their life, and that was a smart thing that Romeo Muller brought into the writing. Because it's like that with all of their shows, Esther the long-eared donkey has the long ears, and he doesn't quite fit in, and it's all this kind of thing, and there really is a lot of warmth to what they did. heartwarming and such a meaningful part of the holidays. There's been so many Christmas shows in recent years that haven't even come close to what they did.
Right.
But they keep trying. They don't understand that the writing has to be just right, It can't be, all these movies of today, the kids' movies, have these kind of crude humor type jokes that might make freshmen in high school laugh.
Right.
Or, it doesn't work. But I don't know.
With what you've been doing, I mean, we talked about times and travel. Next year is 2020, and that's going to start a whole new decade. What is your plans for the new year?
Well, we're trying to get my Frosty book out before Christmas this year because he turns 50, and I'm expecting CBS is going to come to my house again. I want to set up more quality appearances like Mid-Atlantic and Chiller Theater and Dragon Con. These are really great places there's a big fan base and I made a lot of friends that will come out every time I appear. So I want to do those good conventions that, like we were talking about, these great celebrities like Barbara Eden and Dawn Wells and Shirley Jones. Places like that I do well at. So that's what I want to continue doing at the good shows. And, just keeping it alive, that's all I can do. I don't really plan too much ahead because I really got to do a good job on the here and now. We're planning on getting some hats made of the Rankin Bass logo, some baseball type caps, and then we were even talking about knit caps for the winter.
Right.
And those kinds of things people think are really cool, and I've already had people asking me about them and wanting to order them. So I always do well during Halloween through the end of the year, so it keeps me busy. I do a lot of radio interviews, and there's a couple more TV things I might be doing.
Okay.
For next year. So that's always fun.
Right.
I thought maybe, my appearance on Collector's Call might lead to doing a similar show for another network where I could talk about collecting with the Rankin Bass stuff and, maybe spin it off into its own show. So you never know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the expert on collecting, and I'm also the expert on Rankin Bass's history.
Right.
So I thought that would be a kind of a novel thing for some network to pick up. So we'll see.
Yeah, I absolutely agree they should, because with what it would be good to do a documentary, a movie, or some kind of a series about your work and the history of Rankin and Bass.
Right. We do want to do a documentary. In fact, we laid the groundwork for that about 3 years ago and did some campaigning on Indiegogo. But I did shoot a documentary last year on Boris Karloff that I did an interview for, and in fact they put me on Internet Movie Database as part of that that cast. So hopefully that's going to come out soon.
Right.
And Rankin Bass is a natural documentary subject. And in 2018, they did really bad documentaries for the new Blu-rays they put out on Rudolph, Frosty, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. They ruined them. So there is kind of a demand for a quality documentary,
Right.
where it isn't just people saying why they liked Rankin Bass. They call those documentaries talking heads, where they just get a bunch of famous people saying why they liked the shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about, because I knew everybody that worked on the shows, even all the ones that passed away. So I want to talk about, what they told me and show the photos of the actual productions and all of that good stuff.
Right.
A legitimate documentary, which hopefully that's not going to be too far in the future.
Right.
Because I think people would love it. And with, you mentioned the video, like watching cable, I think now it's gotten away from cable and television and it's all streaming. A lot of people are only watching what they stream on their phones or on their computers. And documentaries are kind of in that line where they will watch documentaries if it's about a subject that interests them and stream them. So
Right.
it could draw a lot of interest into the actual shows because I don't think as many people are watching AMC and Freeform as they were 5 or 10 years ago.
Right.
So the streaming market has really taken off, and I notice documentaries are a big part of that. My son will say, yeah, I watched the Tom Petty documentary online, or I watched, this documentary about one of his favorite bands or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're not airing on AMC or whatever. They're not even watching it on there. So we'll see.
Yeah. I believe that doing the documentary as you described it would be an excellent term of a documentary to put the stream, because when you said that, I remember that Don Hahn, who works at Disney, he did a documentary on the animation studio from 84 to 94 called Waking Sleeping Beauty, and as you put it, they said the same thing, no talking heads. Only if you went to the special features and they talked about it, they're on there. But during the documentary, it was all archival footage. It was just them talking and just photos and archive footage from back in the day from that time. And that would be an excellent documentary for, as you mentioned, to go by as well, showing photos and footage from that era and putting it on the DVD or, or streaming it, YouTube and Hulu, everything then took over now, as we said. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, doing what you do. Do you have any advice for anybody that wants to follow in your footsteps to do what you're doing?
Well, it's a lot of hard work, and it just, you just have to be a go-getter kind of a person, and that's what I am. There's a lot of obstacles, and there's a lot of, a lot of people that will let you down if you rely on them, and I've found that you can't really rely on anybody. You just have to do it yourself for the most part.
Right.
So that's what I would say is just, if you're determined to do whatever it is, becoming a historian or writing a book or whatever, you just have to keep going, keep doing it, and persevere. That's what I do. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's a lot of work involved with what I do because, we get books printed up. I have to sign them and draw them and ship them out and advertise them and do these events and network with people, and it's hard to explain
Right.
what I do, but it's something that I love doing, and if you're driven, you can make things happen. And I think I'm a lot like Arthur Rankin. That's why he liked me. He was an artist himself, but he was this producer that would get an idea, let's bring Rudolph to TV, and, have to tell everyone, we got to get this done by November, whatever. And he would get the right people to do it, and he would make it happen, and he wouldn't look back, no excuses kind of a guy.
Right.
And that's what I am. I have people telling me, I can't really do that by that time, and I can't help you, or I can't, so I find someone else that can,
Right.
or I do it myself, or whatever. I don't like to hear excuses.
Right.
I just want to make it happen in whatever way it needs to be. Let's do it that way.
Absolutely. Now,
So,
before we wrap, during our conversation, like I said, you've touched on a lot, and I've had a lot of fun talking with you tonight. I have there are 4 quick questions I wanted to ask you based on our conversation. The first question I wanted to ask you was, we talked earlier about how times have changed between then and now. Is there a big difference of how your work have changed between now with social media compared to back then when you first got started?
well, I find it's easier to reach people than it was.
Right.
Like years ago, people were finding out about my books from seeing them in Borders or somewhere. Now they're finding out from Facebook groups. So there's a lot more shows too now than there used to be. There used to be just San Diego Comic-Con and the Chicago Comic-Con, and now every state has a Comic-Con.
Right.
There's actually too many shows, but there's some really good ones, and then there's other ones that aren't so good. So I don't know. It's a little bit of everything, but I do find that I reach more people now than I could years ago.
Okay. My second question to you is, because of your line of work, have you ever considered being an actor?
Yeah, I have. At times. And that's kind of what I have to do when I do a TV interview, or do some type of project for television or radio or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I admire acting, although today with the entertainment world is what it is now, reality has become the thing of entertainment today, and for good or bad, I don't really like reality shows, although Collector's Call was kind of a reality thing. I don't know. I kind of like what I do, and if I can get in on some historical television stuff, that would be preferred over trying to do anything else.
Right. My third question, now it's kind of a out there question, because we already touched base on you doing art, but I could actually envision you being an animator, and because of what you've done art-wise, have you ever considered being in animation?
Well, I took animation in college, and my teacher worked for the Fleischer Studios.
Oh.
He worked on Popeye, Betty Boop, and Superman.
Right.
And he would screen the cartoons in our class, and I did a little piece of animation of me playing the guitar,
Okay.
jumping around with the guitar and so forth. But I realized how difficult it was to work in animation, and how animation gets shipped overseas. And I really never saw myself as being an animator,
Right.
because it's tedious work and it's very difficult. I figured that I could be a designer like Paul Coker and Jack Davis, where, you know, I could use a style to influence the animation.
Right.
But I never really, I guess I saw that as being a lot more work than I wanted to get involved with. And I never got into computer animation because computers were just kind of starting out when I was in college, and we had a basic computer class, but nothing like, what they do today. But I don't necessarily like computer animation. So
Right.
if I were to do animation, I would want to do stop motion, like the Art Cloaky and Rankin stuff, where you move puppets on a stage, one frame at a time.
Right.
That's what I would want to do if I got into animation.
Okay. I gotta add a trivia real quick because you brought up the Fletcher men. Because I know Max Fletcher animate, like you say, he did Popeye, and I think he did Felix the Cat. His son Richard directed the Disney movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I had to throw that in there real quick.
And my teacher met Walt Disney too.
Really?
At the Fleischer Studios. Yeah, he visited the Fleischer Studios, and maybe that's how he met Richard.
Right. Okay.
I think my battery is low.
Oh.
I heard a buzz.
Yeah, I got my last question, and we'll wrap.
Sure.
And you mentioned stop animation. It's not really a question; it's more like a statement. I love that kind of animation. From my time growing up, there were two shows growing up from that time that did a lot of stop animation, like the Rudolph and Santa, because that was really popular back then. And one show was called Tugs, and another show that they mentioned stop animation, which is popular today. It was a kids show called Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and during that time in the early 80s, they did a lot of, even with commercials, and someone like myself who liked watching old commercials from back then, seeing a lot of animated commercials using stop action, like you mentioned, that's something that I enjoyed seeing, but, of course, 3D has taken over. And
well, the Will Vinton Studios did a lot of sort of claymation things with, like, the Raisins.
Right.
And I forget what else, and then the Arden Studios do that Wallace and Gromit sort of claymation also. So the art form has been around quite a bit, but I prefer like the puppets that Rankin Bass use. They have like clothes and different textures and made out of a lot of different materials. Just the actual puppets, because I've taken them around to shows, and I used to own a few of them.
Right.
The Rankin Bass puppets in themselves, just looking at them, are a piece of art. They don't even have to be animated to be appreciated. And, that's another thing that drew me into Rankin Bass Productions was the love of the puppetry, especially in Rudolph and Mad Monster Party and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. You look at those characters and the way they look, it's just amazing,
Right.
the style of them is gorgeous. And I think as a kid, I did admire animation in cartoon commercials,
Right.
Puppetry commercials, but a lot of people say the Norelco razor was at Rankin Bass, and it wasn't. But I love those commercials too.
Right.
So the art form is. I think it's gonna stick around and come back more. I was hoping that the Addams Family was gonna be in stop motion, like The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
They were talking about that for a long time. And what they did with the CGI, I didn't really care for it. Like, I love the Addams Family, but
Right.
it seems like everything else, and had it been done in stop motion, I think that would have set it apart from all the things that are coming out now, and it would have been more of a draw.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I really enjoyed our talk tonight, and
Yeah.
I had a blast. You really educated me a lot on some things, because I'm there as far as historian, but because I'm a writer, and like I said, I watch a lot of older films from the 80s and 90s as live action, animation. People would, any friends of mine would tell you I'm a big Lethal Weapons and Beverly Hills Cop fan, and the stop action shows like I mentioned, Tugs, Thomas, and I'm sure Gumby.
Right.
That was popular back then. And
I brought the whole Gumby cast and Daisy and Goliath to Taylor Theater and had them at my table.
Right. I know Daisy and Goliath too. I taped it back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thank you for taking the time to come out, and I really admire your work, especially with keeping the Rankin Bass dream going on.
Sure.
I'm not trying to dumb down your time on Earth, but when I say this, but I hope when you're getting to that point where you're ready to retire, that somebody else can carry the legacy of what you're doing on, because I think it's really great. And my fingers are crossed for a documentary for that as well.
Hopefully I'll be back in Maryland too. Maybe next September and do some more Rankin Bass things at the Mid-Atlantic Con.
Right.
That was a good show.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't at the one from this year because, there were maybe one or two people there I wanted to meet. I know Lonnie Anderson was one of them, but I didn't get there this year. But if you are able to come back next year, I plan to be at that one and hope to reconnect with you. And I hope down the line you can come back as a guest and we can talk some more.
Sure.
Okay.
You have a nice holiday season too. It's going to be a busy one for me, I know.
Yeah. Christmas is coming, and that is one of my favorite holidays. And I'm sure that from all the people that you've met over the years, you probably do you have a favorite one that you've had the real pleasure of meeting out of everybody that you met over the years?
Probably. At Schiller Theater, I got to meet the Monkees.
Okay.
Mike, Mickey, and Peter. Davey had passed away, but that was kind of a big deal for me because I've always loved the Monkees since I was a baby.
Right. I love them. I love their song "Daydream Believer."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They have a lot of great songs, and they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They've never been given their credit that they deserve, but that was kind of a thrill to meet them, and there's so many. I'm hoping to meet a few more before they pass away.
Right.
I wanted to meet Roy Finnis from The Invaders. He was supposed to be at the Hollywood show,
Right.
a few weeks ago, but he canceled. So there's just a few people that I haven't met that I do want to meet, but
Right. I'm familiar with Roy Stennis from his theater work, and he also was on the soap opera One Life to Live. He did two stunts on there. And I hope you meet him and can talk about him next time I have you on as my guest.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you for coming on again. I'm sorry if I overbound you with questions. But
no.
I
love to talk about all this stuff, so it's always fun for me.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking with you, and I hope you come back to Maryland next year and we can reconnect.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Thank you for coming aboard. And guys, thank you for listening to P.E. Slick Podcast. You have a good night.
Finally, equal treatment for hands and nails. New Vaseline Intensive Care Hand and Nail Formula Lotion. It softens rough, dry hands and helps strengthen nails. Finally, equal treatment for hands and nails.
Well, YouTubers, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for tuning in this week for P.E. Slick Podcast. I'm your host, Ranger Matt, signing off. Until next time, you have a good night now.
Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. If you want to change your direction, if your time of life is at hand, well, don't be the rule, be the exception. A good way to start is to stand. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. If I want to change the reflection I see in the mirror each morn, oh, you do? You mean that it's just my election? Just that. To vote for a chance to be reborn. Woo-hoo! You put one foot in front of the other, and soon you are walking across the floor. You put one foot in front of the other, and soon you are walking out the door. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you are walking across the floor. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon